Hello, everybody. We're live for another stream, for another What is New in Prisma live stream. Hey, Ryan, how are you doing?
Hello. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good over here. Do you recognize anything different in this stream?
Anything different? Is it where you're doing this from? The studio?
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, well, in fact, it's indeed the same room that I'm sitting in, but we turned the table here 90 degrees. So you now see the glass door of the room in the background. And you can really see that it's a very small room, actually, that I'm sitting in. But we also have a little bit more of a professional setup. So hopefully the audio quality this time is better. I don't know. What's your take on the audio today?
Yeah, it sounds good. With that particular mic you've got, I find that if you got to be pretty close to it. It's kind of the same with this one, actually. Like these mics, they're sort of designed so that you have to be right up to them to have the audio come through well. So like if I'm over here, you can't really hear me all that well, hey? Like
That's true.
It really fades quickly, I think, and the same goes for yours. But it sounds great. Looks good. Sounds good.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, we have a couple of nice topics that we'll talk about today. So, of course, as usual, we'll discuss the latest Prisma release from Tuesday, 2.8 this time. Then we want to talk about custom generator blocks in the Prisma schema, because we have a couple of more use cases that people came up with and that we would like to share with the community today. And then we also have a surprise guest on the show today. And I'm not going to spoil anything about who this is and what we're going to talk about, but just stay tuned. We'll bring him on the stream towards the end of today's show. Ryan, I quickly wanted to ask you something, because I think you were part of the GraphQL Berlin meetup that we actually did in collaboration with the GraphQL Munich meetup group this week. And maybe you could quickly say or tell what happened there, and if people want to see retroactively what has been going on, where can they go to watch the stream of the meetup?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we did just have another meetup. It was GraphQL Berlin number 18 in conjunction with GraphQL Munich. Had 3 great speakers for that event. A couple technical difficulties right in the middle, which you'll see me try to scramble to fill in for, which is entertaining perhaps. And if you want to see that entertainment, you can check it out on YouTube. Just do a search for GraphQL Berlin 18. You'll find it there. You'll also find our previous meetups as well. The last one we did was back in August, I think, end of August, number 17. So check those out. Yeah, there's some great content on those ones. I can actually, what I'll do is grab a link from YouTube GraphQL Berlin 18. I will post this into the chat once I get it. Share, copy, and here it is. Post comment. Boom.
Very cool. Yeah, so I actually heard that you basically gave a spontaneous talk because the speaker dropped off, and because of course we want to fill the time with kind of valuable content, you dropped in and just said, "Okay, I can do this spontaneously." So what did you talk about?
Well, no, it wasn't like a full-out talk or anything. Although maybe I should prepare myself to do that in the future. Maybe that's a good place to be. But no, it was more so just like some filler to like promote Prisma, to promote some of the other stuff that was happening in conjunction with the meetup. So nothing terribly fancy, but I definitely didn't have any jokes prepared either. And maybe that's something I should try to fix. We'll see. I'm definitely not one to drop comedy in those situations, but I don't know. Maybe I can turn that around. We'll see.
Maybe next time. Cool. One thing that I think we wanted to talk about today, Ryan, that's not really related to Prisma or anything else that we are dealing here with today in our daily lives, or at least to an extent, I think. But we just wanted to talk a little bit about our technical setups, because I got a new MacBook this week, and the first thing, or it actually was a little bit scary. I actually already got it a couple of weeks ago, but switching MacBooks is just such a daunting task, because you just have to reconfigure everything from scratch. You have to make sure that you're authenticated everywhere, your 1Password setup, your workflows, your shortcuts, all of that stuff. And I kind of like pushed it until I really thought, okay, now I have to go and just set it up. And I went through, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of your preferred tools, your preferred setup. So maybe we could start with like one thing that I actually tried a new tool this time, and that's window management.
Okay.
Do you use anything specific for window management in terms of like how you arrange the windows on your screen, or are you just using your mouse to kind of resize windows as you go?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. The one trick that I'll do is, if you like on a Mac, if you hover over the green expand icon at the top left, you have the choice of like then fixing that window to one or the other side of your screen. So you could, that's like a little bit handy, but it doesn't come anywhere close to the kind of power you get with a window manager. So I'm curious about your experience. What are you using, and do you like it? Is it worthwhile?
All right. Yeah, I'll just quickly share my screen here so that I can actually show people like what I mean when I talk about window management. So let me open a new browser window right here. And like what I find really convenient, it's actually just 3 workflows that I really need in my daily work. And that's keyboard shortcuts to put the window on the left half of the screen, on the right half of the screen, or to make it full screen. And I want to get exactly the same functionality with the mouse when I drag it to the left edge or to the right edge of the screen, or even when I drag it to the top, that it expands to full screen. These are pretty much my only requirements that I have for a window manager. So I kind of looked around as to what kind of options there are. In the past, I used a tool that's called Better Touch Tool. And this has been like serving me really well, actually. But the reason why I wanted to switch is that it is just incredibly powerful and complex. And I never felt that I actually needed that entire complexity. So this is really for power users who want to customize everything in their workflow. And so like I didn't really need such a complex tool, and I was looking for something more simple. And what I went with at this point was Moom, because that looked exactly like the kind of simple tool that I was looking for. So I installed it. It's actually around $10 or so, so I paid for it as well. But I think it's often completely underrated that you pay a couple of bucks for these kinds of productivity tools that really like make it worthwhile, because they're just improving your workflow so much. And we spend like $3 or $4, like 5, 6, 7 sometimes on a coffee or on a lunch. Then I can certainly spend $10 on a tool that makes me more productive. I used this. I had a bit of trouble like setting it up in the first place with the functionality to drag the windows to the screen edges. So that didn't work initially for some reason, but after I restarted my computer, it did work, and now I'm happy with it, because it just gives me exactly the kind of workflows that I wanted. So that's the window management tool that I've been using.
That's cool. What's it called again? Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
It's called Moom. So like Zoom, but with an M.
Cool. Moom. All right, I'll check it out. It sounds like it's working well for you. That's cool. Yeah, there's a few of these on the market. I was just reminded of, like, when I first started up at Prisma, I tweeted out that I have got my new computer, etc. And I said in the tweet, like, I'm going to install this and this and this. What else am I missing, etc. And there's some really good replies of things that I didn't even really know about or think about. So I'm going to post that tweet here in the comments. If
nice.
people, if you've got a new computer, or even if you don't, if you just want to retroactively set things up, check that out, because there might be a thing or two in there that you can find that will be useful. I found some good tidbits in there. Yeah, I'm curious about, like, when you set up your dev environment and stuff. That's always the big question, I think, for people. Do you rely heavily on like Homebrew for your Mac, or do you build yourself?
Yes. So like Homebrew is typically one of the first things that I'm installing on my computer, because it just makes it so much easier to get pretty much all the software that you need. But in fact, there was one thing where I was a little bit hesitant this time to install via Homebrew, and that was node.js. In the past, I think I always went down that route, that I first kind of installed Homebrew and then I installed Node with it. But for some reason, and I don't know how, I typically was messing up my Node installation somehow. And I got these weird errors when I was running npm install, and it was just really annoying. I never felt that I had a clean version of Node installed. So I really wanted to get it right this time. And I actually also tweeted a little poll about kind of the different options that people prefer. And I had two kind of main options: to either download it from the official Node.js website, or to install it via Homebrew, or maybe a third option. And interestingly enough, a lot of people said that like Homebrew would be the way to go. But then there were a lot of comments under that tweet as well. And 1/3 of the people actually like also voted for other. And a lot of people recommended to use the Node version manager, NVM.
Yeah.
And that's also actually what I went with in the end. One challenge for me there was, though, that I'm using the fish shell. Fish stands for, I think, Friendly Interactive Shell.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm using it is it gives me really great auto completion, and it's really configurable, and it has really good defaults. And that's really what I care about. I actually don't want to go in and configure too much stuff right away. I just want the tools to just work for me. And I'm like, on the other hand, I'm also not that much of a terminal power user, I would say. I mean, I'm using the terminal regularly for a lot of different workflows, but these are fairly basic. So I don't really go beyond the kind of basic development workflows that people have with Git, or just like things like this, but like fairly on a high level. I don't go so deep on the terminal. So I just want something that just works. And then I found that NVM is actually not compatible with Fish. And that was a challenge for me. But then in the threads, like in the Twitter thread, like somebody posted a tutorial how you can make Fish work with NVM, and that just worked like a charm.
Nice.
And now I have NVM installed. I was able to install Node and npm through it, and I feel like now I have just the setup that I actually the kind of clean setup that I just wanted.
That's awesome. Yeah. Same case for me. I've always had issues with Node, and so my Prisma computer is the first time that I've used NVM, and it's working well. But for whatever reason, whenever I tried to set it up in the past on my old computers, it just never worked, and it clashed with other versions of things, and it was just a nightmare. So, key to fixing your Node issues: get a new computer. That's the place that we've got for you. No, I mean, like, Node stuff, it's always annoying to deal with, but if you can use something like NVM, that I'm finding it to be great. It's working really well. So that is cool. Yeah, so that's cool. I'll check out the Fish terminal. Do we want to jump into new features of 2.8? I think that's probably a good point. This is a good point to start doing that. Why don't we talk about some of these new features, like findFirst? Do you want to cover that one?
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as usual for this. So as I already mentioned, on Tuesday we launched the 2.8 version of Prisma, and the biggest new feature in here is the findFirst function, which is basically you can effectively imagine it to be pretty much the same API that find many gives you, but it just returns a single item. So sometimes you're in a situation where you actually only need a single instance or like a single element from the list that's being returned by find many. And in this case, what you had to do before 2.8 was that you had to call find many, and then you just grab the first element of that, for example, using the square bracket notation here and just accessing the first element of the array. So from version 2.8, you actually don't have to do that anymore, because you now have the findFirst function that works exactly in the same way, and that gives you exactly that element. It should be noted here that findFirst takes exactly the same arguments as find many. I actually want to go ahead and show a quick demo of this. So I've prepared my VS Code here already. Just going to show you very quickly what the Prisma schema looks like. So I have the user model and the post model. I can probably increase the font size a little bit here. And just to show you, to install dependencies first. To show you what the database looks like at the moment, I have several user records in the database that you'll see in a second here in Prisma Studio. And they're all called Alice, but they all have different email addresses because they're working at different companies. And if I really don't care about which Alice would be returned, but only need, I can have like one of these in my code to work with. In that case, I can now use the findFirst method. And for that, I have to first go and upgrade my Prisma setup to version 2.8. Then, as usual, I'm just going to remove node modules where my Prisma client code is located and regenerate Prisma client to make sure it's updated to the latest version, of course. And in fact, because this is installing node modules and calling Prisma generate for me, I already have access to Prisma client now. And in here, I can now go ahead and use the new findFirst function on the user model, findFirst. And here you'll notice that you still have exactly the same the same arguments that you also pass to find many. And the reasoning behind this is that you can still paginate and sort the list, for example, using, for example, the order by argument here, or skip take cursor for pagination. And the reason for that is that you're still kind of first specifying a list of elements, and findFirst, it just returns the first item of that list then. So it might make sense, depending on the use case, that you actually still want to sort it, because a certain element has to be the first in the list because that's the one that interests you. But in this case, I'm just going to filter by the name attribute and show you what this looks like when I run it. So I want all the users called Alice, and I'm expecting the first user basically from the database. Let me run Yarn Prisma Studio again so that we see the initial order in the database here. So this user is being returned, but then I can go ahead and use skip, for example, to say that I want to skip the first one. Now we'll see that the second one from the database right here is being returned. And I think, actually, I'm not 100% sure, but I guess that the order that is being applied here is just by ID. So that's kind of my assumption, but I would have to validate if that's 100% correct. So that's findFirst.
Awesome. When do you think, like, when would this come in handy? What are some situations where people might look to this? I mean, you know, we know what it does. It's going to give you the same ability to skip and sort and whatever that you can with find many. But like, is there anything that comes to mind for you that's like a good, like a good use case where this would apply?
So So here is the GitHub issue where this was discussed, and Hervé, our VP of product, he brought up an interesting use case for this. So this would be relevant, for example, when you need to find a user by their login or their email that people would fill in a single input form in an application. So if you have these two properties and you want to filter by both of them, you cannot use find one because that only allows you to filter for unique properties. So it's really the use case where you kind of need to apply the same filter arguments that you would apply in a find many call, but at the same time, it's a little bit inconvenient that you have to do this with find many when you know that you only want to have a single instance being returned. So that's kind of one use case, I think, where this would apply.
That makes sense. Yeah. I've done stuff like that. That actual specific use case. I remember in Mongo, if you're doing something like that, you're going to use like the or operator quite often. I remember doing that situation. So this, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. There's another feature. I guess we could call it a feature. I don't know if we'd call it a feature. Something new in 2.8, and that is case-insensitive filters. Do you want to talk about that? I guess the fact that it is now stable.
Exactly. So we actually already talked about this in 2.5 of this live stream, actually. So you can just go back to the corresponding video if you want to see an example for this. But basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to filter or like when you have a query where you're filtering for a string field and you don't care about case sensitivity, you can now specify this mode option here inside of the filter, and that will make sure that the casing is being ignored. And that was initially released in version 2.5. And if you want to see an example for what that looks like when it's being applied in practice, then you can just go ahead, go back to the live stream 2.5 where we talked about this. So I'm going to spare the example for today's stream. All right, that was already it for the release. I don't think that there was too much more stuff that we should talk about the release at this point. Ryan, in the last stream, we already talked about a CLI that allowed developers to generate UML diagrams from the Prisma schema. And I think today we want to talk about something that gives you slightly similar functionality, but still different. What is it that a community member built that we want to share today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the DBML generator for Prisma. So we should pop my screen in. Do you want to do that, or should I do that here?
Yeah, here you go.
Cool, there we go. So yeah, DBML generator for Prisma. This is a tool built by Mark. Mark has built this DBML generator that does things similar to what we saw last time, 2 weeks ago when we did a stream. We saw this other tool is like a UML generator for Prisma that works on your model and generates like a UML diagram for you. And fun fact about that demo last time is Niko thought I was going to be demoing this. We talked about demoing this DBML generator. And then I went to look for it to like learn it so that I could demo it. And I found a different one that looked similar. And so I totally demoed something that was completely different, but kind of the same. In any case, we want to demo this one this time because this is a really cool tool. It operates in some of the same ways, but what's going to be different that we'll see this time. So last time, if you recall, with that UML generator, it was like a CLI command that we ran, which looked into your Prisma schema and then did some work to come up with a UML diagram for you. In this case, this is going to be something you actually add right into your Prisma, your .prisma file, your schema.prisma file for a generator. It's going to be this thing that runs when you run Prisma generate to output a file, which is going to be DBML. DBML, database markup language. right, Niko? Did I get that right? I assume I did.
I think so, yeah.
Which I've never actually worked with DBML before, but there's a demo of what it is that you get for output here. You get this markup language that looks like this. You got a table called user, and then your fields. This kind of looks like Prisma in some way. But the result of this, once you have it, is you can visualize it. And if you use some visualization tools like dbdiagram.io, you can just paste it in there, and you get this nice visualization of your database. So that is pretty cool. So why don't we demo how this works? Here's the install commands. They say install it as a dev dependency, and it's Prisma DBML generator. So I've got this demo project here, and let's try it out. npm install as a dev dependency, Prisma DBML generator. That will run. I think we're good there. All right, so now I've got this model already set up, or several models set up here. This was taken from that Redwood example that I demoed last time. I just copied it over to a new workspace here. And what I'll do is come up here below my client generator that targets the Prisma Client JS. I'll do a new one, a generator, and let's double check here. What do they say? Call it DBML. So we call it DBML, and that looks like this with a provider that is equal to Prisma DBML generator. All right, cool. So now if we do Prisma generate, we should get some outputs. And in fact, we do. So we've got this DBML folder, and it's got this schema.dbml. And if I copy this, I'll select all of that and copy it. And then over here at dbdiagram.io, I'll paste it in. And just like that, we have a full diagram for our database. And this is really cool. It's like really interactive here at dbdiagram.io. So this is a really useful diagramming tool, I guess. If you got a Prisma project and you want to share those diagrams with folks who want to look at them, this is probably a really useful tool for you. And it's pretty lightweight, just plugs in really easily. I took a look at the source code for this. It's kind of the same thing that we talked about last time, where we're using the DMMF and to remind
data model meta format,
data model modeling function, or something else.
The data model meta format, but
meta
yeah,
format.
that's this,
I
exactly.
Totally misremembered what it was. The data model meta format, and it's this thing that comes from Prisma, which kind of gives you this whole tree of information about what your Prisma schema looks like. And that's how it works under the hood, and that's the output you get. So I think it's pretty cool. Check it out. The site for it is here, notiz.dev, and it's on one of their blog posts. But if you look for, just do a search for Prisma DBML generator, you'll find it. I will actually though post this into the comments.
Very nice. I also want to give a huge shout out to Mark, who has been a very long time and active community member, actually. And what he also built, he built a starter kit for Prisma with Nest.js, and actually also gave a talk about this at Prisma Day. So if you're curious about that, then definitely go back to our Prisma Day YouTube playlist and check out his talk about the integration with Nest.js. And maybe for like a little bit more context also on the DBML generator that we just saw, and also how it compares to the UML generating CLI that we talked about last time. I think so like on a high level, they are doing fairly similar things, right? They both kind of in the end serve as ways how you can generate kind of UML diagrams from a Prisma schema, but the way how they're achieving that is very different. So the way how the generator from last time worked was by using a standard that's called plant UML, which I think is probably used a little bit more in enterprise environments. And DBML is just basically an open standard for a data modeling language that can be used for relational and document databases to just model data. And it really depends on your use case when you would want to use what. And it's also interesting to think about integration with different tools. So what these kinds of standards they give you is that there are some tools out there that you can just easily plug these formats into, and then, for example, generate these visualizations. But maybe there are also tools that maybe help you with migrations on databases, or like whatever, like in whatever context the topic of modeling data might be relevant, these tools could be interesting. And one difference also is that last time, what we talked about was just a CLI. So that was something that you would invoke manually on the terminal in order to turn the Prisma schema into this planned UML diagram. And what we're looking at today is a generator that you specify inside of the Prisma schema. And I think that like one thing we should make clear is that one component of the generator that we're looking at today is actually also kind of like a CLI that you could also invoke manually. So I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure that it would be possible to just run this DBML generator also just via the terminal without necessarily putting it as a generator into your Prisma schema and then running Prisma generate. But the benefit of actually plugging it in as a generator is that it means whenever you are changing your Prisma schema and you kind of need to regenerate your Prisma assets like Prisma Client, like when you need to regenerate that anyways, you also automatically generate the DBML schema for that. So it kind of just plugs in nicely into your already existing Prisma workflows, and you don't have to explicitly go in and call a CLI manually yourself, because it's just being regenerated every time.
Yep, totally. And yeah, I noted that when I was taking a look through the source code here, is there is this kind of CLI directory here. So I'm not sure about the story for how you would invoke it just from the command line.
Not sure. Maybe you like have to do a little bit of like work yourself and like maybe wrap it in a CLI or so. But
yeah.
I mean the logic for actually generating the DBML here is already in there. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the important part here.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really cool tool that might be useful for you. Check it out. We should talk about JSON schema generator. Niko, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, I'm going to take over screen sharing here, and I hope we don't bore people with these custom generators that you can plug into your Prisma schema, but I think it's just really interesting to see all the different use cases people are coming up with, and I think it's worth kind of also just basically giving a shout out to these people who spend their free time and work on these tools that enrich the Prisma ecosystem. So I really want to take that opportunity and thank these people to when they're like spending their free time and enriching the Prisma ecosystem here. And like one of these people is Valentin Palkovic. Special shout out to him. He's actually from my hometown, or at least he lives there, it seems like, from Hamburg. That's where I'm from originally as well. And he picked up a GitHub issue that somebody opened in the Prisma repo with a use case where they said that they're using Fastify, and what you can do with Fastify is you can provide a JSON schema to provide better performance and input-output data validation. And because the types that they're using on the API level with Fastify, they most of the time actually match the types that they define in the Prisma schema, because the database models that they're defining is also what they're exposing on their API layer. In this case, it looks like a REST API with Fastify. They don't want to go through kind of the manual overhead and redefining these types as the JSON schema if they already defined them once in the Prisma schema. So what they suggested would be a way to turn the Prisma schema into the JSON schema. And if you follow the conversation here a little bit, you can see that at some point the idea of a custom Prisma schema, Prisma JSON schema generator came up. And then Valentin chimed into the conversation and said that he would like to give it a try. And you can see that already 3 days later, there was the version that he published on NPM. And that's what I want to demo today. So this is basically the GitHub README, and I'll just basically follow your lead. I'll just follow the instructions for setting everything up. So I have my very simple Prisma schema here again with a user, with a post, and one enum. And in my package JSON, I only have the standard kind of Prisma and TypeScript dependencies so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Prisma JSON schema generator dependency. Then I'm going ahead and add the generator block to the Prisma schema. This invokes the script that's being fetched into Node modules through that installation process. At this point, I'm just using the default output path, which is going to create a new directory inside my Prisma directory where the result of this is going to be stored. And then I'm going to run npx prisma generate to invoke the generator. And once it's done running, we should have a new folder in the Prisma folder right here with the JSON schema. And what I'll do, I'll put the Prisma schema side by side to the JSON schema version of this so that we can compare those. And I have I'm actually not sure why this is taking so long. It might be that it's accidentally executing the Prisma 1 generate. Yeah, I don't know why. Let me just run it with yarn. Did I not install dependencies properly? Just switching between yarn and npm like a savage here, but should be all right now. Yarn Prisma generate. Did I not save the file maybe? There you go. And I got this JSON schema version. Let's quickly compare it to the original Prisma schema. So we can see that we have for the definitions, we have user and post. They correspond to our models here. And then if we just take a look at what these definitions looks like. So user is an object type. Properties, it has an ID of type integer. It has a created at field that's of type string. So at runtime, this is going to be represented as a string, but the format is even specified further as datetime for a field that is optional. So in this case, weight, the type is either integer or null. So what this effectively does, it describes the structure of the JavaScript objects that are going to be emitted by the like at runtime for user and post models. I don't think I have to go a lot deeper on this. What this is useful for is primarily for like validating data, as was the initial use case that was brought up in the GitHub issue. For example, when you're using a tool like Fastify, makes it really easy to kind of validate the data that's being returned by your API, for example, and validate it against the JSON schema that's being generated here. All right. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think, Ryan, it's time to bring in our surprise guest today.
You're right. So I have to pop out while Luca comes in, or?
Yes, we'll actually swap you out against him, and I'll just remove you from the screen, or actually I'll add him to the screen. Yeah, we're the three of us. The problem, I mean, like, we can quickly speak like this, at least for the introduction, Luca, but we don't have the right overlay for this outline. So your head is now in between our name tags, but I don't think that should be a problem. Hey, Luca, how are you doing? Who are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm Luca. I joined Prisma end of last year for one specific reason. And that is to build something on top of Prisma, but not in JavaScript, but in another language, because Prisma is all about node.js and building JavaScript or node.js apps and using databases with that. But I'm actually working on something to bring that to a whole new language. And I'm going to talk about that.
I really like the suspense that you're building here. So what language is it that you're working on?
So the language is Go. It's from Google. Maybe some people heard about it. And it's a relatively new language, at least compared to some other old languages like JavaScript or Java or whatever. And
cool.
yeah.
So like what are the benefits of Go, for example, compared to JavaScript and TypeScript? Like, why would somebody pick Go for their project rather than having it run on Node, whether they're using JavaScript or TypeScript to actually build out the application? Ultimately, it's going to run on Node, but why would somebody pick Go for a project?
So Go was created to have a scaling, nice language. And the main focus of Go is that it's type safe, which is like one major advantage compared to JavaScript. And what it means is that the whole language is type safe, which means you can't just have a function or a variable or something which doesn't exist. And even if it exists, it has to be the exact same type. So you can't just do random stuff. And that actually sounds, for some people, maybe complicated or confusing, but it actually makes programming simpler, in my opinion, because when you type, the editor you're using is much smarter, because there can only be specific functions or variables to type. And then also, if something is wrong, some type is not matching, you will not be able to run the program. So you will just get an error. And that is good, because you won't get as many bugs as you would get with JavaScript, for example.
Right. So like, it basically adds like another layer of constraints that kind of prevent the developer from shooting themselves in the foot. So kind of like TypeScript, but it seems like Go even takes it to another level, even compared to TypeScript.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to add is that they really focused Go on simplicity, because there are other languages which are type safe, for example, Java. But Go is really like bringing both of them together to have the type safety and but also the simplicity and not overcomplicating things. So yeah, it really is only a few features, but with those features you can build a lot of cool stuff.
Right. And you have been working on Prisma Client in Golang. So today,
Exactly.
what we saw today already in the stream was the Prisma Client JavaScript version and TypeScript version that people can run when they're using or building Node applications. But you have been working on the Prisma Client version in Go. Why does Go need a modern database client in the first place, or how do people typically work with databases in Go as of today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, Go has actually a native package for working with databases, for SQL databases specifically. And that is not too bad, especially if you just really want to write a simple app. But it has the same problems as many other libraries, and that applies also to like other languages like node.js. For the same reason we have the JS client. And yeah, so there are libraries and packages for Go which make it even simpler, because the native library also has limitations, and it's not really type safe because you have to write raw SQL. You need to care about lots of stuff which you don't usually want to. It slows you down. It's not. It doesn't, like, you will run into tons of errors, and it is not a pleasure to work with. And there are some existing solutions for Go, just like there is in JavaScript. But in my opinion, they are all not optimal, and I think the Prisma approach is usually a very good one, because we generate the code which most libraries or ORMs do not do. And yeah, so that is a unique advantage, that we have exactly what is in the database and can generate a type-safe client from it. And
that's what we basically mean when we're saying that Prisma Client is tailored to your data, right? It really knows about your database schema. It already knows about your models. So it can really make working with your database schema type safe, and bring the type safety to another level that other ORMs can provide, because they don't have the same level of awareness, like when it comes to like knowing about your schema. And you already hinted at it. I think what's like interesting about this is also the Prisma architecture that makes it like uniquely qualified for such a use case to support multiple support this type-safe database access in multiple languages. Because what Prisma Client ultimately is, it's a thin language-specific wrapper on top of the Prisma query engine, where the actual heavy lifting is being performed. And that query engine is implemented in Rust. So it's very low level, and that's where the database queries are getting generated and optimized. And what you have been working on is basically the wrapper for the query engine in Golang, if I understand correctly.
That is a very good description. That is
cool.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think at this point we should also clarify that the Go client, the Prisma client in Go, really still is a prototype version. So it's nowhere near production ready. And what we are showing you today, we are showing you primarily in order to get your feedback on that and for you to try it out and explore it. But be aware that this is very, very early. The API might change drastically in the future. We expect it not necessarily to be fully stable. So I think what Luca is actually going to show you today will just be like a little bit of a taste for what we are working on. So Luca, I would now ask you to share your screen and get started with the demo of the Prisma client in Go.
Sounds good.
All right, here is your screen. Ryan, I'm going to pop you out now and see you in a bit. And for you, I have the right overlay. Yes. There you go. Take it away.
Done. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to not talk all the time about theoretical stuff we are doing, I want to show you exactly what the Go client does, how it works, and how it works. So I'm gonna run through a quick start, which is try to keep it as simple as possible. And you can also try that out yourself later on. We'll post a GitHub link in the chat later on. But I will just quickly run through through the chat quick start thing.
All right, I'll actually share the quick start link already in the chat so that people can follow it if they want.
Yeah. So first thing we're gonna do is we start with a new Go project, and just if some of you never have seen Go code before, this is how a Hello World program looks. We're just gonna quickly run this, and this will print Hello World. Yay!
That looks familiar.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. But now to the Prisma part, we will just get the Prisma Client Go module. And that's already it. And now we are going to add the Prisma schema into the Prisma schema file, which you most likely know from JavaScript already. And the difference is that we won't generate a JavaScript client, but the Go client instead. This is why, this is what the provider is for. And we'll be using SQLite for this demo. You can also switch it out to Postgres or whatever database we already support in JavaScript. And we're going to start with a simple model, which is a post, like on a blog or something, where you have posts, and it has a few attributes like title, if it's published or not in the description. And also good to know is the description is optional, but we'll come later to that. And so now that we have this code, we will quickly have to create our database. This is a bit annoying, but we just have to run 2 commands with my migrate, which makes it like just copy paste work, and then it's done. So we have now our database here on the top left. There's a dev.db, which is the SQLite database. And then the last step is that we are actually generating the Go client so that we can use it. So we are going to do that. And the code is generated. It's in this folder, in this package. This is not super important what exactly is in there. And I'm also going to quickly just copy paste the quick start here to just show you what it does. I'm not going into much detail here, but in general, this is our entry point. We just create a client and connect to it. This is quite similar to the JavaScript client part. And then this is the first interesting part where we just create a post. And you can see that this doesn't look at all like SQL or anything. And it actually looks a bit similar to the Prisma JavaScript client syntax. It's just adapted to Go, basically. And you will see that if I swap something out here, actually, this was an optional type. If I swap something out, which is missing, then you will already see that this gives us an error. So we know that something's wrong. And we can't.
So you get that same level of compile time, type safety, basically, that's preventing you from creating a model in the database without a required field, right?
Exactly.
You always have to specify everything that has been specified as required in the Prisma schema. You have to provide it. And if you don't do it, then the compiler is going to yell at you already at compile time, and you won't even be able to run the code.
Exactly. And the good thing about this is that it's just normal Go code. It's nothing unusual or anything. So we create a post here, and then afterwards we will just find access the post or find one post with the ID we just created before, because why not? So let's just do that. And then we see we have created a post. This is the return type. The return value, and you can see that if I would like to do something with this return post here, I can just type stuff. Let's do this, and then I can type post, and this is a bug in my editor, but so when I type post dot from the return post, then you will see you can just access all attributes. And nothing which is not actually defined. So we could look like the title or the published thing or whatever. And you also, now that we just created this post, you can see in the database that we have this post table, and we have indeed a row created. So this is it in a nutshell. I will show you one more example where the Go client really shines, and especially in where Prisma or the Go client or both shine, especially if you compare to raw SQL. And I'm going to go ahead and delete some of the code we just ran. So let's say you have we have this block with a post, and then we want to have another like comments for posts, for example. So we want to add that to the Prisma schema, to the database, and also do stuff with it. And I will also just quickly copy paste this. so that we have a comment model, and we will need to do this just for reasons it's not relevant to this demo now. So we have a comment now which has a post, and the post has multiple comments, and then we will quickly need to run migrations again so that the database is up to date. That's done. And then we will have to run generate again so that we have the fresh new database client. And yeah, so what we want to do now, don't mind this is just my copy paste notes. What we want to do first now is quickly create a comment. And what is interesting to note here, I will just go ahead and build this up myself, that when you use client.comment.create one, you will see that there are two arguments are required, and one of them is the content of the comment, and one of them is the post. So that means we have to connect the comment to a post, because a comment can only be under a post, so it is a required relation or a required foreign key in SQL speak. So when this doesn't run. You see the nice red squiggly lines. And only if I add this db.comment.post link, and you can see that you can live all from auto completion if you type comment, and then you will see okay, a comment has a post, and then you want to link that post to the comment we're just creating. And so this is how the whole query stuff works. There's lots of stuff you can do. And let me just quickly finish this so we don't waste time. Just in order to create a comment, we will just need the ID of the post to connect this. Now we will run this. I didn't log anything, so it looks like it worked. Let's peek in the comment table. Yeah, so there's indeed a new comment created just now. And I want to show one more example, which is cumbersome in SQL and really nice with Prisma and also in Go, that if you want to fetch a post and the comments of a post, because you usually want to show all of them at once and not just comment and then a separate database query for the comment. So what you can do really easily, I'll also quickly copy and paste this over so you just don't see me wasting my time typing stuff. So you can find many posts, and then we will query for something a bit different, where the title contains Prisma, and you can use a bunch of different filters here. Has prefix, has suffix, in a slice, in whatever equals contains. And we will use contains. And the interesting bit is now that you can also fetch the comments with the posts. So when you fetch the posts, all of the comments is fetched as well. So let's run that, and then we should see a nice JSON result of everything, and it works. So we have all posts here and some comments, and then we can send that to some API or some client or whatever, and it's all fast and easy and type safe. So yeah.
That's really impressive. Great stuff, Luca. That's awesome. Where can people go to try this out themselves or to learn more about it? What do we want from people? Maybe you can just wrap up with a couple of bits of information for the community here.
Yeah, so everything lives currently under this link, Prisma Client Go. I'm sure we have the link in the comment section. And also we have the docs there and not on the Prisma site yet, because we're still, it's still like a prototype and we keep everything under here. And what we like you to do is to give the Prisma Client Go a try. If you don't know Go at all, then I would also recommend that you try out Go, just for fun maybe. It's a nice language. So we would like you to try out Prisma Client Go, and then you can go to the quick start here, and it's really just a few commands to get you running quickly. And we also have some more docs for more specific things in the docs section. I will let you explore that on your own. And we would love to get your feedback on if you think that the Go client solves problems for you, if you think the syntax is nice, if you're missing some features, if you like to get something changed, anything, just create an issue if you have a problem. Or you can also join the Prisma Client Go Slack channel on our public Slack. Maybe we can also put a link to the Slack. If you're already there, you just need to search for the Prisma Client Go channel. And I'm happy to go to hear your feedback and help you if you would run into any problems. And it's a prototype at this point, but we already have quite some people using it for building small apps. And
Very cool. Luca, thank you so much for the demo. I think we should emphasize again that this is a prototype, not yet ready for production use, but this is super exciting. And so exactly as Luca mentioned, we really need your feedback because it's early for the Go client. It's the best time for you to actually share your own thoughts, your own ideas on what it should look like. We had the alpha and beta period of Prisma 2 for a long time last year, where people chimed in and helped shaped what the tools actually looked like in the end. So this is now your chance to do the same for the Go version of Prisma Client. Luca, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
I'll see you on another stream maybe in the future. And see you soon. I'll bring back Ryan now. Ciao.
Okay, thank you.
Wow, that was exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't really touched Go myself, but it looks intriguing. I'd like to know more. So maybe this is some impetus for me to give it a proper go.
Nice.
Let's wrap it up. I think the last thing that we wanted to mention was a call to action for everyone watching. We'd be really interested to know if you're using Prisma at work. So what I'm going to post into the chat right now is a link to Prisma's Twitter, and there is in that link there's a link to a Typeform survey. Just a short thing, 3 questions. Click through it, really easy to do, and let us know if you're using if you're using Prisma at work. We'd love to know, who you are, what you're doing with Prisma, who you work for, if you're up for sharing that sort of information, and what you think about it. So yeah, if you're interested, please follow that link to fill out that really, really tiny short survey.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. I think that was a great session today again, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in 2 weeks again.
Yes, likewise. I will see you before that at work, but I will also see you 2 weeks from now.
All right. Have a good day, Ryan. Ciao.
All right. Bye-bye.